okay, we've identified some blockers into making charitable contributions, or as you also said it, excuses. Like as we talk about it, like there's just like this guilt. I feel like that comes along with it. Are you feeling that too?
Absolutely feel a guilt of not giving away more of our wealth. I am a firm believer that giving away your money, not all of it, but giving away a lot amount will actually feel like you have more. Welcome to Money Dates, the podcast that makes money conversations with your partner feel a little less taboo. I'm Natalie Slagle, a certified financial planner, and I'm joined by my husband and business partner, Dan Slagle, also a certified financial planner. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
In each episode, we'll share honest stories and practical tips to help you and your partner feel more connected and confident on your financial journey. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and join us for our Money Dates.
Hey, Natalie.
Hi, Dan.
How are you?
Oh, good. It is sweater weather. Thought I would celebrate by wearing a sweater.
As the viewers can see, those listening on audio cannot see the amazing sweater that you're wearing right now.
It's very chunky. It's essentially a blanket that they've morphed into a sweater because earlier I didn't have my arms in it because I was warm when I walked inside after walking our daughter to school. And so I kind of had it over me and you thought it was a scarf. So this is a sweater that can be many of things.
Well, to be fair, I was sitting on your side. We were in a meeting together. I was right by your side and I didn't look, or I couldn't see your arms, or I could see your arms, but I couldn't see the sleeves of your sweater. And it was up around your neck. And I was just like, that is a really big scarf. That's interesting. And I grabbed it and I pulled at it. And then during the meeting, you put the sweater back on. And I was like, I had no idea you were wearing a sweater.
Oh, funny.
Well, let's jump into today's topic, giving. I want to talk about giving because it's that time of year, especially when we hear from our clients that they're inclined to make charitable gifts before the end of the year. Obviously, with it being the holidays, that's something that's top of mind for a lot of people. And I want to first hit on, why we feel like high earners struggle to give and maybe provide some context into how we can at least start, right? Going back to that thought of what are some micro steps that we can make today or this year to help incorporate this going forward in our life, if that is what we choose to do when it comes to charitable giving.
Yeah, it's really fun from our seat because we get to strategize with our clients on how we want to approach this. And we'll talk about the tax side of things because, I always like getting into that. To your point, the first thing we need to do, though, is get started. And to be very transparent to those listening, I feel like I know our income is very solid. I don't believe our amount, Dan and Natalie's amount of charitable donations match an amount that I feel proud of in comparison to our income.
And there's reasons for that, right? Why we view it it's so hard to donate. Even a couple that makes 300,000, which we've had a whole episode on that, right? And I think the first bullet point of why we personally feel like it's hard to donate is there can be sometimes a little bit of, let's call it lifestyle creep. We can call it scarcity mindset, and how they coexist together. So even if you're a high earning couple, it can just feel tight, right? Because there are fixed costs. We talked about this, I think it was in our last episode. Yeah, when we shared went in depth of our finances. Remember that conversation? And you were like, our fixed expenses are, I think you said $8,000. And I'm like, I hold the phone, BS, no way. And then we met immediately after we left the podcast room. I'm like, oh, that is true, right? So the fixed costs have started to really scale up. It's consuming a lot of our monthly cash flow. And when we talk about fixed expenses, we're talking about a mortgage or rent. For us, the big one now is childcare, tax payments, whatever it may be. It just feels tight. Even if you make a lot of money, there are ways it can still feel tight. And you don't necessarily want to be giving away cash flow when it's I feel like I can barely go to the grocery store. and afford it, right? So I think that's something that's important to mention.
Yeah, absolutely. So the making 300,000 or more feels like an amount that you should be able to give a good amount of money. And we'll talk about, what is a good amount? What is an amount that is good? And we can talk about some of those parameters. The lifestyle creep, though, because as a couple who gets to that $300,000 mark or more, what's also happening, and to your point, is the added expenses of life as well, whether it's children or buying a new home at today's interest rates. Like those are also increasing. And then I feel like we're going to go through the list of excuses. That's kind of what it feels like, to be honest, because there's also this, like, you and I just chatted yesterday about how much kind of surplus we should have left over at the end of the year. And we mapped out everywhere it will go. One of the things it didn't go to was charity. And I feel like there's this kind of lack of, maybe it's like not the first thing I think of, or I don't have full control of that aspect. Whereas having control over our Christmas budget, I don't know. There's just this like, it's not like coming to mind, and it's not feeling so in control, which can make it hard to donate.
It's not even like what we're talking about specifically today is our donations, like financial donations, right? Mm-hmm. We're not even talking about our time, right? So there are ways to give outside of your finances. This episode is specifically talking about the money in the context of why it is hard sometimes to donate. Why else do you feel like it's hard to donate for a couple that maybe is making like $300,000 outside of lifestyle, call it lifestyle creep and scarcity mindset?
You hear about other people making donations. And even, we just worked on someone who took $60,000 from their brokerage account and put it in their donor advised fund. Now, those are big words, and I'm happy to explain those in a little bit. But essentially, they made a $60,000 donation. And so you hear these massive donation amounts and you're like, well, what does $100 a month really do for an organization? And that is a poor mindset, right? But it can be a mindset of like, well, is $20 a month really worth me going through the rigmarole of setting it up? And speaking of setup, I think some folks can feel like they're doing it wrong. So for instance, like I was just talking about, when we did the $60,000 contribution to the donor advised fund, we used highly appreciated securities, and we transferred the highly appreciated securities to the donor advised fund. So the liquidation happens there and not in the brokerage account. Lots of tax reasons and strategies we went about it that way. And it makes sense to be very strategic and tax minded when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And so all of these tactics and things to be aware of can kind of just put someone in this spot of like analysis paralysis, and then just not make a decision because they don't feel like they're doing it in the most strategic way possible.
Yeah. And like you're saying, a fear of doing it wrong. So thinking about not only like, how do I go about it if it is a little more complex, like you're talking about with the donor advised fund, but even like if we just scale it back and it's just as simple as cutting a check or going to the website, right? Like, I think the fear of doing it wrong is also like, am I donating? Is this the right charity that I want to be donating to, right? Like if you're a couple that maybe isn't as, I don't know if I want to use passionate here. There are some clients that we work with that are like, I'm giving to these 3 causes throughout the course of the year because I truly believe in them. Right. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that may be a missing link into, are they going to be using my finances how I would hope, right? Like, in better understanding what, if you sign up or donate to a charity, oftentimes you can get a better understanding of like, how are my funds likely going to be used or allocated, right? Like whether it's like operational costs or serving out the mission, whatever it may be. I think a lot of times one of the blockers is like, how do I identify, or like, how do I make sure this is the right charity that I do want to support?
Yeah. And that can be such a exploration, which is why, going back to the donor advised fund, one of the perks of that is you can get the tax benefit in the year that you make the contribution, but you don't actually have to give the funds away in that year. So when this podcast comes out, we're going to be towards the end of the year. And so instead of letting that, now I want to kind of pick apart all of these reasons, right? Like, let's go through them. But one of the things, if choosing the actual recipient is a blocker here, well, let's remove that and say, well, we don't have to make that decision just yet. It's the end of the year. If we're trying to do this for financial and strategic reasons, let's just get the money in the donor advised fund. And then we can decide who to give it to. We can give ourselves plenty of time to do the research and all of that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about, we'll break down the donor advised fund here in a little bit. Thinking about, okay, we've identified some blockers into making charitable contributions, or as you also said it, excuses. Like, as we talk about it, like, there's just like this guilt, I feel like that comes along with it. Are you feeling that too?
Absolutely feel a guilt of not giving away more of our wealth. I am a firm believer that giving away your money, not all of it, but giving away a lot amount will actually feel like you have more. And I think if you hoard money, just like when you hoard things, you actually feel like you have less. So there's this, and I don't have any science or anything, but just from what I witness and from what I've seen and experienced in life, those who give they seem to be fulfilled in various aspects. And I will say we have a handful of clients who are faith-based in various facets. And one commonality, and regardless of what religion or spiritual beliefs they have, is that I see a much higher percentage of their wealth or of their income going towards organizations, nonprofit, churches, whatever it may be. And there's something about this underlying, just belief that if you're faith-based, there's something there that I'm so intrigued by and in awe of as someone who's not faith-based, but I have so much respect for those who will talk about cash flow, and I'll see this huge line item and it's their giving, and they're just like, oh, that's a non-negotiable. Like, that's the same as looking at rent and saying, oh, you got to spend less on rent. Well, at some point, it's just, this is as low as it'll go. And that's kind of the conversation, the type of conversation I have with some of our clients is, oh, we're not giving any less. Like, that's the amount. And it's just, okay, moving on. I'm just in awe of those people. And I aspire to be like that. Two
things. So going back to what you were talking about before, like the percentage of monthly income that's being contributed to a charity, and that's non-negotiable. Like, I think about charitable giving in the same light of when we have clients that give money to like the next generation while they're living, or even making charitable donations later in life, because we've mapped out the financial plan, mapped out longer term projections, and solve for here's how much you can give, whether it be to children, grandchildren, to organizations. The thing that stands out to me with those conversations that is missing here and what we've talked about is the idea when we help clients frame it as, do you want to see more of the wealth that you're likely to pass on enjoyed while you're living? Or do you want like the next generation to receive your legacy when you're no longer here? Right? So like mapping out longer term projections, even for clients in their 30s and 40s, it is helpful because we can solve for how much should you give, not how much should you give, but how much are you able to give if that is a path you want to go down, right? And it's the idea of experiencing that joy of seeing your contributions go to work, whether it be for religious organization, whether it be for a nonprofit that you support, that maybe you serve on a board for, and you can actually see the things that are being implemented or done with the funds that you're donating.
Right. And then having the assurance that all the other aspects of your financial plan are set up, they're doing what it needs to be doing, and you can afford to do that.
You're talking about clients tithing, right? Like, I think that's what stands out, where it's traditional, I believe, give 10% of your income. And we do have a few clients that do that. And it is admirable because you look at the line items, you look at how it impacts cash flow. And again, it's a non-negotiable. So to me, tithing 10% is on the upper end of what we see. We do have a lot of clients who make monthly contributions. If you could help the listeners like think about how much should you donate, or like what are some frameworks that we could offer to lend some support?
The tithing is the reason why that framework works is because it's easy, 10%. And so I really do appreciate the percentage approach because it will grow with you. It'll also reduce with you because we've had our clients who tithe who've gone through income reductions. And so it was easy for them to say, okay, my tithing amount is now lower because our income is lower as well. So the percentage approach to me feels like a very easy way to just get into it and start, just depending on where you're at now, whether it's zero or whether you're just doing $1,000 a year of these random things. I think looking at, we're at the end of the year, what was your income for 2025? Could you depart from 1% of your income? Just look at 1% of your income and say, how would that be mapped out in 2026? So I really, really like the percentage approach.
Yeah, I think that's an easy place to start. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're a couple making 300,000, the idea around starting with 1% is 3,000. Check my math. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, okay. It is. Yes,
okay.
It is.
Great. So that's a place you could definitely start. We've had other clients choose a different route, more of like a fixed number approach. I don't know a better way to describe it, but it's like choosing an annual gift goal. And it doesn't, again, have to be just for one organization. It can be spread across many organizations, but clients often may have like a fixed number in mind, right? So that could be $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. You name it, whatever you decide. I think that's another easy way to think about how much should we give of our wealth.
Right. And the other is just paying attention to the organizations that mean a lot to you and picking an amount that feels good. Or they could be having a campaign going on. This is happening with one of our clients right now. They are pledging $10,000 a year for the next 3 years because of this very specific campaign of an organization that they're going to support. And so whatever amount works really well for you, I personally like the percentage approach. It just feels easy. And I think it would be an approach that would work well for our household, Dan.
Yeah, something maybe we'll talk about after this episode in private, not on another episode of Money Dates. Okay, so we've
Okay.
Yeah. We've identified some blockers, right, into why maybe we personally and others don't donate towards charitable causes. We've also identified approaches to donating in terms of thinking about a dollar amount, percentage amount. Let's get to the mechanics, right? Like after you've thought about it, you talk about it with your partner, you identify, are we facing some of these blockers? If so, overcome them. We've now decided on how much we want to do. Like, let's start talking about some of the technical side. Like, what are your options for donating?
Well, option number one, as I'm sure everyone is familiar with, is just donating cash. It's clean, it's simple, just putting your credit card or your debit card and having them run the transaction. So that is like, just go do that. That's easy, right? That's a really, really nice way to do it.
Especially if you're just getting started. Don't let all the decisions prevent you from making a decision. The next thing to review and to consider for donations are appreciated stock. This is our client base. This is a really fitting avenue for donations. And so we can either directly transfer appreciated stock from our brokerage account to essentially the charity's brokerage account. So most charities will have a custodian that they accept highly appreciated stock. And again, what you're doing is if you have a stock that's worth $100 per share today and you bought it at $10 per share, that's a $90 gain per share. You're transferring the $100 value and you'll get the donation for the market value of the transfer, $100, and you never realize the capital gains. And then when the charity accepts the money, obviously they don't pay the capital gains either. So
it's a really nice way to give quite a bit and to avoid any future tax bombs. So another thing to consider with the appreciated stock, like what we're doing for one of our clients, is they were planning to use their cash balances for these donations that they wanted to have this year. But when we looked at their brokerage account, we were like, well, what you could do is actually take your cash and invest it. And then we're going to take your highly appreciated stock and donate that, because the cash that's getting invested into the stock, well, now we're resetting the basis. So we're making your cost basis be higher. Eventually you would have had to realize these gains. So as you can see, it can get kind of complicated fast. So it's good to review this, but the appreciated stock is a really great avenue to donate. And another item to think about is your required minimum distribution. So this is for our older audience. If you have required minimum distributions, which we have a handful of clients with those, you can do what's called qualified charitable distributions, where you have to take money out of your IRA, and instead of that money going to you, it goes to the charity, and you reduce ordinary income that would have happened on your tax return. So fun things.
Can I just put a disclaimer out there for anyone who's thinking about doing either of these items? If you're working with professionals, and I say this because maybe I'm traumatized from previous careers, make sure you do this in a timely manner, right? You don't want to be bombarding your financial professional or even investment custodian if you don't in the last week of December to be getting these things done, because they are time sensitive, right? So if this is truly something that you want to explore for 2025 and in future years, get a head start on it while you can, and don't wait until the last minute to get this done.
Right, because you have to sign paperwork. There's analysis. If you're a client of ours, give us a call if you want to look at this. If you're not a client and need a professional, give us a call ASAP, because there's a lot of steps to get onboarded and to conduct some of these strategies. So we talked about options for donating cash, appreciated stock, required minimum distributions. There's also time, right? Obviously that doesn't hit so much on the financial aspect of things, although time is money, right? So that's a really important piece here too. And I think the time aspect is really just going to the charities, going to these organizations and really seeing what they do, helping out what they do. That just feels so fulfilling.
Yeah. And lastly, in this bucket, donor advised funds. So you talked about donor advised funds earlier. I think it would be amazing if you could break that down for our audience.
Yeah. So a donor advised fund it is a separate account. So for our clients, they custody at Schwab. And so we create a Charles Schwab donor advised fund for our clients. And what we do is we could take cash or highly appreciated securities. Most of the time, we're taking the highly appreciated securities, and we are transferring them to the donor advised fund. Once they are there, we will then liquidate. And they can either continue to be invested if you want your charitable bucket to grow and grow, or we can take distributions. So for some clients, it really makes sense to establish a donor advised fund in a high income year, because we want to offset income. It just ranges on what amount that could be. And so let's say it's an amount greater than what you want to contribute into in a year, then you would keep the funds in the donor advised fund, and then you can invest it. And the purpose of that is so that, it's the gift that keeps on giving. You can see your dollars grow on behalf of these charities that you're one day going to make donations to. And there's a lot more to it than that, but I don't want to get too complicated here. What else do you think is worth mentioning, Dan, with the donor advised funds?
I think it's a great avenue to explore for people at a certain point. I think where we see it most beneficial for our clients are, tech professionals with equity compensation, with highly appreciated stock, could be entrepreneurs with larger liquidity events, and just even couples like unsure where they want to give, but know that they want to eventually, that may benefit from a deduction now as opposed to later. What I like about the donor advice from my side is it does give you more flexibility in terms of controlling the gift when you want it to happen. So even if you don't have a charity in mind right now, it's not to say you're not going to have some cause that you want to contribute to 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it may be. So it just really reduces that pressure to make a decision in a specific year if you are unsure about where you want your dollars to go.
Yes, absolutely. Earlier this year, I went to a presentation from a woman that helps families create donor advised funds. And one thing she recommended is that if you're a family like ours, Dan, like you have good income and maybe you have some kiddos, create a donor advised fund. And even if it's not a lot, just start putting money into it. And then as a family, pull up the account, review how much is in there. And then as a family this time of year around the holidays, decide where you want that money to go to. And so you might not be donating to the donor or creating the donor advised fund because you have this high income year or this liquidity event or something like that. You're more so doing it to creating intention in your household that you want your family, you want your children to see that you give away some of your wealth. And then as a family, you all decide, okay, where is this going? The donation has been made to our family donor advised fund, but now where are the funds actually going to end up? And I thought that exercise was just so beautiful. Like I look forward to doing that with our daughter someday.
Wasn't the idea that each year, like someone in the family gets to choose where the dollars go? Or like, I forgot how that story went. Was that it? Or like everyone in the family had a say and like you have to vote on?
I think it could be however you want. Like it could rotate. Okay, now it's Dan's year to pick. Or to your point, like everyone puts forth a charity and then it's just a voting thing. I guess maybe it depends how many. Do you have an odd number of family members? Do you have an even, but to your point, there's so many ways to slice and dice it, and it can create like a fun event, a fun family event, and just making sure that we're keeping top of mind the sole purpose and meaning behind the holiday season.
Yeah. Let's talk lastly about tax benefits of giving. Since you are the self-proclaimed tax queen, and I also proclaim you the tax.
I was going to say that's not just self-proclaimed.
Talk to me about some of the tax benefits that you see with charitable contributions.
With charitable contributions, if you itemize your deductions, and I'm just going to stay in the federal camp because all those states out there, they have different things going on. But in the federal side, when you file your federal taxes, if you itemize your deductions, you'll likely be able to deduct most of your charitable contributions. The reason why I'm saying you'll likely be able to is because it's subject to your AGI based on a percentage limit. So around like 50-60% if you're doing cash gifts. So it's usually because that limit is actually pretty high. We don't see a lot of our clients reaching that. So that's why I say most of the time you'll be able to deduct all of your charitable contributions if you are itemizing your deductions. Now, a lot of clients and friends and family, they don't even know. They're like, I don't know if I'm taking the standard or itemized because my accountant always asks for it. I'm like, yeah, well, your accountant's always asking for the itemized deductions, the things that go on that list, because they just want to make sure. Can you do the standard or the itemized? But for 2025, as we've already seen and started to map out for our clients, Dan, a lot of folks were taking the standard deduction. They did in 2024, and they're going to switch in 2025 because of that SALT deduction, state and local taxes going up. We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but because that went up, it's going to open the door to itemize, which means all of our clients are now going to be tracking down all these charitable contributions they've made, right? And so if you itemize, which a lot of listeners, the folks who are at the 300,000 plus, who have a home, things like that, live in a high income tax state, you're going to be itemizing in 2025, very likely. And so that is where you're going to see the deduction for your charitable contributions.
Yeah. And even if you're not itemizing, right? Like I think you can still take up to $2,000 of charitable deductions on your federal return, right? That's
starting in 2026.
In 2026. Okay. So we're talking about 2025. So Save that for a later year.
So in 2025, it's the big change that's happening is a lot of folks are going to itemize. So they will get the charitable deduction if they're itemizing and subject to those limitations. In 2026, there's all these funky new rules. There's going to be a floor that you have to hit. So if you're making 300,000, the first 0.5% of charitable contributions you cannot deduct. So that's $1,500 of donations that you will not be able to count on your itemized deduction list. But the weird thing is that, to your point, Dan, if you're not itemizing, you're just taking the standard deduction. In 2026, you get up to $2,000 as married filing jointly. So 2025, 2026 is a really interesting, they're two different years on what's going to happen from the charitable deduction standpoint. Of course, that's my tax self kind of explaining all of this. Donate because you want to, donate because you want to see your wealth spread really well across the world, and then leave the analysis and decisions to professionals to help you navigate how to be strategic with that.
Let's say I'm having trouble with giving and it's something I want to do. And maybe this is real life, maybe not. How do I convince myself, like if you were to give me some advice, not financial advice, listen to the disclaimers after the podcast. How would you provide advice for me to convince myself that I can part with this money? Like my income going to another source or another cause. Like if I'm struggling with that, how can I better like deal with or understand the impact, or how I can part ways with it?
Yeah, I think making it, again, going back to those who tithe, it's just a part of their financial makeup, right? I think about how when we go grocery shopping, we look for the healthy options. We always try to buy organic produce. I know it's more expensive. I know it is costing us, but it's a part of our values as a family to eat really well and to take care of our bodies. And so instead of it being this mindset of like parting ways with this money, we have to flip the mindset to be, this is a part of how our family reflects their values. The choices we make as a family is that we support those in need. It's not an expense. We're not losing the money. It's just a way of living. It's a way that we operate our financial household. And start small. Even just everybody can think of one organization that they feel they're very fond of, and just go and make a $50, $100 donation. Just do it and notice the feelings that come up when you make that donation. And there's one thing if someone asks us to support their charity because they're going on a walk or they're doing a run or, something like that, it's just so easy to like, just go and do it. Like, of course, because it feels like you're supporting that friend or that loved one. And I think there's something different about, there's no one asking you. You have a value, of an organization that supports that value, and you want to support them, right? Without any outside pressure. So do a small gift and just notice the feelings that arise as you make that donation.
You bring up a really good point, because there are many people in our life that, like you said, walk for a cause, run for a cause. They do something for a specific cause that they are passionate about. Why I love the idea of supporting friends or family who are donating or fundraising for a specific cause, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, is because you are giving people the opportunity to also give their money, right? Like, for example, and this is something personal that I have become very passionate about, and 2 years ago, I lost my mom to cancer. So how was I able to, I thought, like, how can I mix supporting something that was like so detrimental to me and my family, supporting research around this item that's impacting so many people's lives, and how can I raise money in doing so while still doing something that is challenging to me and reflects my other values in a certain way, where I get to like burn off some of the frustration from an event that happened in my personal life, right? Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, so for me, what I've actually found really helpful, and it's not like year end, this happens, right? Like I have to give money at a year end, or it's more like during the year. What I did last year is I ran the Chicago Marathon. I said last year, it was like a month and a half ago. I ran the Chicago Marathon, and I ran with the American Cancer Society. And by doing so, in order to run the event with their team, I pledged a certain amount of money that I had to make, right? So how it worked on my end was I needed to raise $2,500 by a certain date before the race. Otherwise, I was going to make the charitable contribution. Mm-hmm. And I was totally fine with that, right? But in the same light, it also allowed me to share how cancer specifically has impacted me and my family. And being able to put it out on my platforms and see the support that came in to allow other people to donate and use their money. Like it was just like it was a way to motivate people to, again, support a charitable cause. So I love that concept of supporting your friends to support the cause that they want to support, and knowing still you are making charitable contributions. And I think that goes back to one of the first blockers, is like, we don't always think of charitable support in that way, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes these like micro gifts that you give during the year, they still count at the end of the day. They still count as charitable contributions. And we can't lose sight of them, especially as we get into year end, when we're thinking about like, how do we donate more? Not just from a tax benefit, but to further the causes that we support.
Yeah, I've always, and I appreciate you sharing that, Dan, because even though maybe the $2,500 didn't all come from us, if you didn't run, if you didn't pledge, that none of that money would have gone to the American Cancer Society. And so that, you're really combining your efforts, your time, your money, because we did donate as well, to a cause that is meaningful to you. And then you also had the opportunity to share the story of it. So that those types of events, and I think all of our clients, including us, we want to always be able to say yes. When someone asks for money, that's been a thing very near and dear to my heart. Even when you're at the grocery store and they say, hey, you want to round up to, send money to the local food bank? I always want to be in a position where I can say yes to, and I know that's a small example, but when those friends or people are raising money for whatever it may be, I want to make sure our finances are always set up that the answer is, of course. And how much joy is that I get to support you supporting another organization.
This is good. I think for us, we need to have a conversation before year end and see how we can implement some of these tactics that we described, and see if we can further our dollars past us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the conversation, Dan.
Bye, Natalie. Hey, if you've enjoyed this episode and are looking for personalized financial guidance, schedule a free complimentary consultation using the link in the description below. Natalie and Dan Slagle are the founding partners of Fuse Financial Planning, a registered investment advisor. The information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services are offered to clients or prospective clients where Fuse Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For more information, including our disclosures, please visit our website at www.fusefinancial.com.